What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Movie Race.
It's news to no one that iCarly was one of Nickelodeon's most popular shows of all time. The series premiered just after Drake and Josh and Miranda Cosgrove landed the starring role. This show was beloved by fans, and most of us were pretty upset with how the series ended. Though there will now be a reboot of the series that takes place several years in the future, but Sam Puckett won't be in it, and here's why. Before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Naturally, we are all super pumped for the return of iCarly after the show ended several years ago. Every episode of the series was a slam dunk, and I think I speak for everyone when I say none of us wanted it to end. Miranda Cosgrove had just moved over from Jake and Josh and took the world by storm when she accepted the role of Carly. Jennette McCurdy was hot on her heels playing the role of her best friend, Sam Puckett. Sam was arguably everyone's favorite character. She was sassy and mean, but also one of the most relatable characters from the show. When the iCarly reboot was announced a couple of months ago, though, Sam was nowhere to be seen. It would be several more months before Jennette McCurdy would open up about her decision to stay away from the reboot. I'm sure most of us understand that Jennette was dealing with a lot while filming iCarly. She struggled with mental illness for most of her childhood and adolescence, and it doesn't seem like that pain has healed with time. She remembers her time with Nickelodeon very negatively, and has been outspoken about how she was treated during filming and the toll it had on her health. She spoke on her podcast, Empty Inside, and talked about when she first began acting. She said, "I quit a few years ago because I initially didn't want to do it. My mom put me in it when I was 6, and by sort of age, I guess 10 or 11, I was the main financial support for my family. My family didn't have a lot of money, and this was the way out, which I actually think was helpful in driving me to some degree of success."
8:15. Tell him where you're having dinner. On his uncle's boat.
Nice.
I know. I love boat food.
She said that she never felt comfortable while acting and that auditions were particularly hard for her. She would always seem to get incredibly nervous and anxious, but would usually find ways to work through it. Even as a young girl, she seems to have cared deeply for her family and wanted to help them make ends meet in any way that she could. So she continued acting, despite her deep desire to leave Hollywood entirely. However, when Jennette's mother passed away a short while later, her perspective began to change and she decided she did not want to act anymore, nor did she want to continue following her mother's dreams for her. In a sense, it was like she had an awakening and finally knew what she wanted for herself. She said, "With her death kind of died a lot of her ideas for my life, and that was its own journey and a difficult one for sure. I feel so unfulfilled by the roles that I played and felt like I was the most cheesy, embarrassing thing. I did the shows that I was on from like 13 to 21, and by 15 I was already embarrassed." Her personal life would take a drastic turn as well when Jennette would go back to school after shooting for iCarly. She was no longer known simply as Jennette. Instead, all of her friends now associated her with Sam, and it began to affect her in ways she could have never imagined. She added, "My friends at 15, they're not like, 'Oh cool, you're on this Nickelodeon show.' It was embarrassing, and I imagine there's a very different experience to be had with acting if you're proud of your roles, and you feel fulfilled by them." She mentioned that she had no plans to return to acting. She's too busy doing her own thing, taking care of her podcast and working on the back end of films, taking on directing roles and other roles as a crew member. She didn't completely eliminate the idea of returning to the new iCarly series, but she made it very clear that she doesn't plan on making an appearance in the show anytime soon. She said, "I feel like I have a point of view, and I have a vision. We'll see where things are in a few years." Jennette's podcast confession came just a few years after she admitted that she struggled deeply during her time at Nickelodeon. She says that her mental health was so bad that she developed an eating disorder and lost a tooth because of it. She mentioned her mother's influence on her acting career and said, "My disordered eating started when I was 11. As a child actress working in Hollywood, I quickly learned that remaining physically small for my age meant I had a better chance of booking more roles. Unfortunately, I had a trusty and dedicated companion ready to help me with my burgeoning anorexia. My mom."
Someone who just lost the other half of his cheeseburger.
Sam, gross.
It's not my fault. Waiting around for people makes me crave meat.
She continued and said, "I don't hold this against my mom at all. I don't think she could help it. Mom had been hospitalized for anorexia on several occasions when she was a teenager, and I'm not convinced she ever overcame her disordered eating. When I was growing up, the only dinner I ever saw her eat was a plate of steamed broccoli and cauliflower with a single pinch of garlic salt for flavor." She said that as the years went by and the pressure of her presence on iCarly became greater, she would turn away from her anorexic lifestyle, though this time she turned to binge eating, which is equally dangerous. She said that food quickly went from being her worst enemy to being her only friend. She says, "When I was 18, my mom was diagnosed with cancer for a second time, and this time it was terminal. iCarly had become a global phenomenon. I had a record deal with a fancy record label, mom was dying, and I just couldn't handle the pressures of everything happening around me. But this time, instead of turning away from food, I turned to food. Lots and lots of food."
That's a lot of Parmesan.
Oh, what did I put in this lasagna to make it so incredible?
She pressed on and said, "And so began my binge eating phase. I still tracked, calculated, and obsessed about every single thing that went into my mouth, just the same as when I had anorexia. The only difference was that I was eating a lot more. I was constantly preoccupied with food. Nothing meant more to me than my next bite, and nothing gave me more shame than my last one. I was in a toxic, self-loathing cycle." Needless to say, it makes perfect sense that Jeanette wants to distance herself from acting. She has made some amazing strides in recent years and has continued on her road to recovery, despite constant setbacks time and time again.
"You promise me you're eating a healthy breakfast?"
Super healthy, just eating some fresh fruit.
It would be amazing to see Sam return to the series, but if it comes at the cost of Jeanette's health, I think we can all agree that we would be just as happy to watch the show without her. The gang recently returned and shot a quick teaser for the new series, but they sadly announced that they had not even begun filming yet. The teaser premiered in late February of 2021 and showed our 3 favorite cast members back at it again, though they're much older this time around. The teaser didn't reveal too much about the show, but it was so amazing to see the guys in the same room with each other once again after all these years. As it stands, the show is set to premiere on Paramount+, but we don't have an estimated release date just yet. If they haven't started filming the show just yet, it wouldn't be too much of a shock if they announced it wouldn't premiere until 2022. But here's to hoping that they get back to filming sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching! Be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos.